Excellent. So good evening, everyone, and welcome to this new webinar organized by Biomimicry Switzerland. My name is Michaela Emsch, and on behalf of our association, I'm happy to welcome you all. This webinar tonight is a part of a series of 5 dives into practical applications of biomimicry. We started off with urban design, solutions for the seaweed industry. Today is all about social innovation and successful partnerships. And next month with Edwin, we will go into nature's nanostructures and lasers. He'll tell a little bit more about what he'll talk about next month. And Sylvia is here too, our next participant about corporate leadership and lessons learned from the African savannah. So as you can see, diversity and interdisciplinarity are the master concepts behind this series. And we hope to catch people's attention from all walks of life and to further biomimicry in diverse settings. Tonight, I'm very happy to welcome Marina Ruta, a member of Biomimicry Switzerland and a fellow biomimicry practitioner, if I'm right. She has developed a card game, which I have here. It's called Mycelium. I bought it. Do it too. About creating collaborations based on the forest ecosystem between fungi and plants. She will tell us more about this, but also about social innovation that can be triggered by biomimicry and solutions in nature. So tonight's topic is all about partnerships. In order for partnerships to work, we need a few housekeeping rules. So Marina is very happy to take your questions at the end of each section of her presentation. So you can either put it in the chat, and Vinisha, who is hiding behind the Biomimicry Switzerland logo, will write them down, or you can also raise your hand and we will try to put it into a timely manner. Otherwise, if you have not seen the previous webinars, they're available on our site. The recordings are available on our site, which will also be the case for this one. So I let Marina take over and lead us into tonight's webinar. Take it away, introduce yourself, and I will share the screen and be at your command.
Thank you so much, Michaela. And yeah, I'm really glad to be part of the Biomimicry Switzerland Biomimicry Association, and our main objective is also to disseminate information and the ethos of biomimicry. So I hope that I will be up to the challenge tonight. Maybe many of you know already about biomimicry, but there is always a new lens to look at it. So I'm going to tell you next slide, Michaela. Thank you so much for your help. So
shall I go on to the next slide?
Next slide. Thank you.
Excellent. Maybe.
So, just to tell you, the agenda. Just to even maybe, perfect. Some orientation to the people that maybe are still joining. So what are we going to talk about tonight? What am I going to share and what are you going to learn? As I mentioned, as it is one of the objectives of our organization, I would like to equip the audience with the foundation of biomimicry innovation, or innovation by biomimicry, and then focus on the social aspect of innovation by biomimicry that is often overlooked and is less known by the general public. Then I will share my experience as a facilitator of partnerships and how I have applied biomimicry to develop a tool that helped me, and I hope will help many others. People like me who sees collaboration as an imperative for achieving social and environmental benefits. It's what I do in my professional life and what I believe it's really important. So who am I? If we go to the next slide, maybe you're wondering. So I'm, believe it or not, a chemical engineer by background and early career, lent now to international organization in the second part of my professional life. Currently, I'm working at the Center for Nature and Climate at the World Economic Forum, which is an international organization, but also a global platform for multi-stakeholder collaboration. I'm passionate about innovation and nature, and I became an active member of Biomimicry Switzerland and certified as biomimicry practitioner, a lot of biomimicry, at the Biomimicry Academy in Berlin. And Mycelium is actually part of the program that I've been following, and it's if you want, like the prototype of what my project was. And I wanted to learn and apply what I believe is the ultimate sustainability framework, and I wanted to apply it to my work and to my life. So if you go to the next slide, please. Let me start from a basic realization or better definition, which is, in my opinion, the foundation of sustainability, that we are nature and nature is life. As we evolve as human species and we understand how we function, we actually have to acknowledge that the perceived separation in what is human and what is nature is a constructed model. There is no separation in reality. Nature is an interdependent system of living matter. And since it appeared on Earth billions of years ago, it evolved creating conditions that are conducing to itself. So life, nature is life. Life is perpetually creating conditions that are conducive to life. And it is a system that is capable of producing and maintaining itself by creating its own parts, which is mesmerizing to me every time that I think about it. And starting from such realization, we cannot help but outdate completely our, as they call it, take, make, and dispose economic model. And therefore enter in a circular model of economy, because there is no else where to dispose to. There is no else. We are all the interconnection of this web of life. So Michaela, if you go to the next slide, please. Based on that realization, the question that I wanted to explore today is, what is biomimicry? And I believe there is not just an answer. Here I put some definitions in the slide that you see: applying lessons from nature to innovate for people and planet, conscious emulation of life genius, or a framework for sustainable innovation, which is responsible and bio-inspired. I saw definitions in the chat as well that are really inspiring. For me, it's definitely a way of living. It's a mindset and a way of living by being intentional in taking nature as measure and mentor, in learning from other living systems, and then applying insights to our own challenges. But and many of you probably know Janine Bayou is the founder of the biomimicry movement. It's recognizing the life, as she said, as 3.8 billion years of continuous R&D evolution for well-adapted survival strategies. And it's diversified in millions of species. So a wealth of research and developments we can tap into. Next slide, please. And this is like my favorite quote from Janine. And this is probably how I interpret biomimicry as well. How do we make the act of asking nature's advice a normal part of everyday inventing and a normal part of everyday living? And Janine was a biologist. We will see a lot of biologists that inspired, and we can go and ask. There are some people making the joke that as a biologist, she was looking for more jobs for biologists, and she definitely found it with the biomimicry movement. And she came to the conclusion, as I say, that life has billions of R&D experience and constantly innovate to survive and thrive. So that's the objective of life. So why won't we harness such hidden potential? And we can go to the next one. Again, many of you probably know what I'm going to talk about, but for the benefit of those that don't know what are really the foundation of biomimicry, I see biomimicry as nature-inspired innovation articulated in these three fundamental wheels, which I'm going to detail a little bit now. The first is key elements or the main ingredients, if you want, of nature-inspired innovation. Life principle as characteristic of any living system. And finally, the design process that contains the biomimicry innovation and which allows to harness nature lessons for innovation. So with the next slides, let me start with the key elements of biomimicry. So those are the, as I said, the main ingredients and the launchpad of the method in itself. First ethos is the desire to fit in on Earth through respect for, responsibility, and gratitude for our fellow species and our home, basically, this planet. We find there the boundaries of our creation and non-negotiable principles that are then articulated in the life principle wheel and leads towards solutions that create, as I like to repeat, conditions conducive to life. The second element is reconnection and the realization that people and nature are deeply intertwined, and reconnecting is definitely a practice and a mindset that explores and deepens this relationship. How? Most of the time is just by quieting what, again, Janine defined as our human cleverness. In the sense that we reconnect by slowing down, by using all our senses and not just mind, by developing a relationship with the natural surroundings, observing and creating personalized exercise for developing those skills. So the reconnection, the or connection, depending on the relationship that you always had with nature. But I think that from childhood, it's enough for us to close our eyes and think about how we connected when we were children to nature, to go back to that feeling. And then the third ingredient is emulation. Design is so informed by principles, patterns, strategies, and functions that are found in nature. So we emulate all these principal patterns, strategies, and functions. We take, as I probably said before, nature as measure and mentor for human challenges. And we mimic from the form, processes, and systems. We emulate and we do not copy from nature. So if we go to the next slide, we find here we are ready, if you want, in a sense, to use nature strategies for sustainability. The life principle wheel is a tool that can be used to integrate what we call the genius of nature into our daily work or our design work. It is a compass to your sustainable design, a framework to apply at each stage of the design process, and those 6 conditions that are conducive to life, through which life regenerates itself. And I don't go into the details now because it's not a biomimicry class, but I invite you really to apply this wheel also to your life and see if your life, if your way of behaving is conducive to additional life. In the design process, we will see that we can use the life principle in several stages, at the scoping phase, in the creative process, and in the measuring phase. So let's go in the next slide to the design process. And the design process is not very different when we think about innovation and design thinking. It's not so different. It just adds a flavor and adds a couple of steps that are really special to the biomimicry innovation. So as usual, you define the context for the solution that you want to design for the challenge that you want to solve. You look at the impact, the criteria, the constraints, And then the part that is very important, and I will explain how I did it for the development of Mycelium, you identify the function that you want to innovate. And you can use design thinking and really come up with those famous questionnaires. How might we improve, yada, 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 whatever process you want to improve. And then pass to create a design brief that reframe in biological terms. Then you pass to the step that is really unique to biomimicry. Go and ask nature. Observe, understand, and abstract from nature. Where did the inspiration from nature come from? What is the organism, the ecosystem that could inspire? And talking with biologists, walking in nature, getting inspired, but also asking, there is a very useful website developed by the biomimicry community called Ask Nature, asknature.org, where those functions, those strategies are explained according to the organism that explicit them in the world. So in this way, you identify nature success and strategies that can be emulated. And then when you're ready to create, you emulate by mimicking the form, as I say, the process or the living systems, or all of them at the same time, depending on the complexity of the context and the impact that you want to generate. So you capture a blueprint behind the natural phenomena. And when you capture this blueprint, it is really time to abstract those biological strategies, sketch ideas. It's always useful also to really design and take pens and paper, explore option and prototype. And finally, when you prototype and you can go again through the wheel, through the design process, before going again, you test matrix to check really if the goals are met, and thinking about the desirability of the solution, the feasibility of the solution, and the viability of the solution. And here again, the life principles wheel becomes really handy to test and to measure, is this a solution that abide to the biomimicry process. Let's go to the next slides and make it a little bit more real. So there are a number of technological innovation application of biomimicry. And I wanted here to show one that is dear to my chemical past, but also to my passion for corals and life underwater. So Muscle Polymers, Inc. Has developed this high performance, non-toxic, thinking about the life principle wheel, adhesive glue that is mimicking, like it's a glue that can work in wet environments, and it's mimicking the adhesive proteins that mussels use to adhere to surface in these extreme marine environments. And it has been proved that it's 300% stronger than other underwater adhesives that have been invented, and bonds to a wide range of materials. There is an element of flexibility. So muscle polymers can be used and will be used in a number of industries, but the beauty of it is Muscle Polymers Inc. is bringing this product to market first for coral reef restoration that is solving a critical problem within conservation ecosystem. So there is this concept of also like taking and giving back to the ecosystem that we study. We can go to the next slides. I started the agenda telling you, yes, but fantastic about technological innovation. There is a number of, the previous slides, Michaela, thank you. What about societies? What challenge must societies or organizations need to address? And how do we change, evolve, and produce wealth as society? And you see it here, my haha moments came when I read this book, yet by another evolutionary biologist, who then I met in California with the chance to meet. She argues that every human society is a superorganism, like colonies of ants, bees, but also underground fungal networks, giving like another hint to what is coming later. And so we can be inspired by how this superorganism in nature thrive. The process is always the same, actually. You identify the function, ask how nature addresses it, and come up this time with a social strategy. So the basic question that Tamsin wanted to answer with her research was, how does nature build infinite wealth in a finite world? The problem that is very dear to our societies these days. And she found the answer in superorganisms. And she outlined these 5 conditions that superorganisms are implementing, and from which we could take inspiration: collective intelligence, swarm creativity, distributed leadership and not hierarchical structures, depend on reciprocity and sharing, and compound regenerative value. All concepts that can be applied to societies at large, but also to organizations, to teams. So nature has definitely more than a lesson to teach us about creating a more adaptable, resilient, cooperative, and networked world. I think that we can then reimagine organizational leadership strategies, planning, and operations with inspiration from healthy and evolving ecosystems. And we can apply the biomimicry process to model teams, but also organizations after those evolving ecosystems, to become skillful at adaptive change, as nature does naturally. So that was like the insight, and of course, like, since I transitioned my career from more technological innovation to social innovation, made me resonate even more. Let's see in the next slides an application that I found. So the simple application, well, when we think about social innovation and biomimicry, thinks about bees, colonies of bees, exactly because they are a superorganism as we are as human species. And how does nature in this context make decisions, for example, decision-making power? So in a beehive, any decision is taken by consensus. This company that invented a social network called Be the Move is exactly taking inspiration and using community-based decision support tool that is based on the vote of confidence. As I said, any decision in a beehive is taken by consensus and never by a single element. It's not a bee or the queen bee that is telling everybody what to do. As much as in our brain, if you think about it, not a single neuron takes all the information from our senses and makes a decision. So millions make a collective choice with the minimized power of single leaders. So definitely through distributive leadership. And multiples checks in by the single scouts to verify the information that are conveyed. So that's the way it works in a beehive, it works in our brain as well. So in Be the Move, they have this decentralized and transparent recommendation that is combining the collective intelligence of the social network that they create, and is combine this collective intelligence with trust and personalized recommendation that lead to this network based on the vote of confidence. And this is not the only example of social innovation inspired by nature. Our member, Michaela, that is helping me today, wrote a book called From Nature's Mouth. And it's a book on communication. And if I remember correctly, she simply asked herself, so how does nature integrate different communities into a broader communication system? She analyzed different cases to come out with those lessons from nature's mouth. I hope that, Michaela, I find your social innovation fascinating, because communication is the basis for partnerships and for collaboration. So I think that everything is really interconnected. So if you go to the next slide, here again, like the question that Janine asked, and for me is just it's a moment to just simply take a pause and maybe see if there are reaction and from the audience and really see how we can answer this question from Janine.
Inisha, have you recorded any questions? Or is anybody else wanting to ask a question? Just unmute yourself and go for it.
I have a quick question. Where can we buy the card game?
The card game? Well, the card game is in prototype. I'm going to explain in the second in the second part. We have like a physical prototype that Michaela helped because we launched in a crowdfunding campaign. But still, like, there are some adjustments that I wanted to make, and since it's not my full-time job, it's taking a little bit of time. But definitely, I'm going to talk a little bit more in detail in the second part. Thank you, Kirsten, and nice to see you.
I have a question for you, Marina. How come social innovation in biomimicry is so little talked about? I mean, you're preaching somebody who's convinced. I can see Sylvia as well, who wrote a book about, you know, coaching leadership inspired by nature. And how come when people think biomimicry, they always think tech? Do you have an answer for that?
Well, I have an opinion, at least. I think that the answer is social innovation is, I'm not saying that the technological innovation is not complex. It's complicated sometimes, but it's not as complex as social innovation. And most of the time, the process to emulate a form or a process of one organism is less complicated, also from a research point of view, than emulating superorganisms strategies. So it is less explored, and there is less research about it. So when you go and ask nature, or when you go on the website, there is still some more research that needs to be done. And that was also like in my research when I was looking for a partnership. So I think that the reality is that the biomimicry process needs to go hand in hand with the understanding of the social ecosystems that are present in nature. And this is something that needs to be explored.
Thank you. I saw in the chat that Mark has an answer to Janine's question. You want to go, Mark, or do you want me to read your quote? I can't see Mark, so I don't know where he is.
I can go, I guess. You know,
go ahead.
Not everybody does inventing. Not everybody works in inventive processes. Not everybody is involved in innovation. And in my experience, the ones that haven't been trained to ask this question. You know, it doesn't make itself into any syllabus. Not everybody knows about it, and that, to me, is kind of how you get people inventing and taking nature's lead.
And to answer you, Mark, I have a double sword answer. The answer is, like, I hope that with these webinars, we are preaching, we are disseminating even more about this method. But the double sword is also like thinking about that we are all creators, and we always invent something in our daily life or in our jobs. So I personally don't think that is like there is the inventor job and then the others follows. It's just that the scale is probably different. But you are absolutely right that we have to communicate more about this method and share widely and profusely. I see other hands raised, and I'm super happy to have not just questions, but really, like, if you have your opinions, we can go with it. I don't know if
we go with Sylvia first.
Yeah,
yeah. Hi, Marina. First of all, nice to meet you. So I was thinking about what Mark was saying, and I think that this sentence from Janine is very focused on the classical concept of biomimicry that is very linked to design and technology. So probably it would be nice also that this sentence say as a normal part of everyday life, because I think that I agree with you, Marina, that all of us are creator in some extent in our daily life, but probably to transfer the concept of biomimicry into social innovation, we should use a narrative and a proper language also, you know, to instill this concept into social innovation. It's still very focused on design and technology, in my opinion, biomimicry.
Thank you, Sylvia. And design is not enough applied to social innovation sometimes. Thank you.
You would like, if you don't have further comments, we maybe Andrew could ask his question or share his.
Yeah, I'd love to. Thanks. I think with social innovation, it's really fascinating because even with the ethos of biomimicry, it's really easy for us to focus on shifting from nature as a warehouse of resources to nature as a handbook of technologies. And we can still devalue nature just at the expense of consuming knowledge from it. And I think with social innovations, there's the most opportunity for authentic biomimicry to be practiced, because whereas with a product, you're still working within the current manufacturing processes that might be coal or fossil fuels. But social innovation doesn't require necessarily any of those processes to be manifested. So I wonder if you had thoughts on that, Marina.
Well, the thought is that I cannot agree more with what you're saying, in the sense that there is a risk, especially in the first part of your comment, there is a risk often to shift into the ancient mindset and seeing nature just as a resource, while the ethos of biomimicry is the opposite, actually, is to bring us to the same level and to consider ourselves as part of nature. So yes, there is a much stronger opportunity for social innovation, because it looks at the systems rather than just like the function. Like in the biomimicry, what I follow also for developing Mycelium, I was looking at the function that I wanted to accomplish, but it's not just about the function; it's about the system in its whole. I hope that, yeah, I answer your question well.
Yeah, thank you.
Maybe Christiana?
Yes, I was Marina. Hi, I'm Christiana, and I have put it in the chat. I don't want to take too much of your time, but I am thinking of using what you are saying for my business model, because I am right as we speak. I take olive branches, I put the mycelium, I make mushrooms, and this is the first step of developing a new community. So you understand that I'm just thrilled because I hit, this webinar. Is it possible to work together to translate some of that? Because people don't understand, all of them don't understand English. They need to kind of translate it. And yes, I do have the person that is doing biomimicry in Greece as a very close friend. So I am really typing to her. So my question to you is the following. Do you have social settings that you are applying your webinars to? Are you linking social projects around the globe, around the earth, with your work. This was, and yeah. Sorry.
Yeah, and no, thank you, Christiana. It's like we are a community. It's good to grow this community also beyond the Switzerland boundaries. I'm going to explain a little bit later in the second part about Mycelium in itself. So at the moment we applied not to social enterprises, if you want, but we applied to stakeholder meetings for teams, team enhancement, if you want, or checking the partnership within the team, collaboration between facilitators and participants to workshops, even into families. We tried it, like mothers, parents, partnership with children, but we didn't try with bigger social enterprise. So it's something that could be explored.
Last but not least, I just want to make a point. I am not a social enterprise. I am a for-profit organization with in mind of impact. So I am doing.
So you are a social enterprise.
Exactly.
It doesn't mean that you need to be not for profit, but you have the social impact in mind, then you are a social enterprise.
Thank you ever so much. Sorry, I was so excited. I needed a little bit of time. Thank you very much.
It's good. It's perfect. Shall we go on? And then we will have another opportunity to discuss later. So now what I wanted to talk, and because I'm very full of myself, it's about my experience, but also because I think that one's experience is a mirror for others. So coming to my story, at the core of my work at the moment is about facilitating multi-stakeholder collaboration, and this to achieve social and environmental benefits. Stripped down really to the most basic level, my challenge is to help different stakeholders to collaborate. As simple as that. So why not asking nature about it? The first step for me was really to pinpoint that stakeholders, what stakeholders need in this kind of settings. They need trust, they need a safe space for connection, and starting a common vocabulary to align their interests and combine resources. And when I mention multi-stakeholder partnership, I really think about the private sector with the public sector with very different languages and styles. And so as a basis, that's what they need. And in my role as facilitator, I need to create a space also where vulnerability is rewarded and creativity can be enhanced. So I need stakeholders to clarify their roles, really stepping out from their purely technical mindset and into reclaiming what I think is the wholeness of their being individuals and being individuals in relationships. So how does nature do this? If we go to the next slide. It's funny, like I went to the woods, but seriously, I went to the woods. I followed the advice of the biomimicry process. I reconnected with nature. And I wanted really to explore a thriving ecosystems as a collaborative work of different species. We know that a forest is not a bunch of trees. A forest is a collection, is an ecosystem of different species collaborating together. And isn't a forest creating social and environmental benefit? My answer is yes. I let you judge. How its components, the components of a forest, ended up collaborating for the survival of the entire ecosystem. Those are questions that maybe not exactly in those terms, but came to my mind when I reconnect, when I go to the forest, and I'm lucky to live in a place that is not far from them. Why they collaborate and how they collaborate, those different species. And each part needs to be able to do something that the other cannot achieve on their own. And this is to evolve and survive. So they can harness the full potential of the environmental conditions. And in biological terms, this is called the ecological fit, but I can translate it in the partnership fit. So how they really like combine their resources. So I followed very pedantically, I don't know how to say it in English, but I followed the process that in biomimicry is called observe, understand, and abstract. So observe what is remarkable about the systems that are like, usually it's the organism, but what I was thinking is the forest as a partnership of species. So where we can find the identified function, and I'm thinking about as building trust and safe space and communication, those functions that I identify as the needs in the process of facilitation. And how could we apply the learning from the system into to the solution to the challenge that I wanted to solve. So the reconnect part has been really, really inspiring. If you go to the next slide, we really uncover very important, another quote that I wanted to mention by yet another biologist, Lynn Margulis, the mother, if you want, of evolutionary biology and study of symbiotic systems. So she says that some of the most significant moments in evolution resulted from the coming together and staying together, so finding ways to combine and stay together, of different organisms in a long-lasting intimacy of strangers, which I found also like very, very enlightening. How completely strange species or strangers can become intimate and without losing their identity and their strengths. So that's an inspiring quote that allowed me to go further in the way towards mycelium. And if you go to the next slides, again, a book, and like while I was researching about forests and symbiotic relationship, I stumbled into this book, Entangled Life by Marilyn Sheldrake. And this allowed me to go a little bit deeper in my research. As Marilyn explains, fungi are a paradigm of interconnectedness. It is, for me, the basis of the relationship, the basis of life. And they thrive by extending networks, building communities, and restoring balance. Oh, that's something that is interesting for facilitating partnership. So my solution came then inspired by the mycorrhizal network, which is not a tree, and it's not the fungi, but it's really like the symbiotic relationship between the two. And this is one of the most successful partnerships found in nature, where the fungi, for those that don't know, associate with plant roots. And in this association, the fungi, the plants provide fungi with energy, simply, the carbohydrates that they synthesize, and the fungi helps the plants suck up water and also like to find nutrients that roots will have hard time to find, like nitrogen and phosphorus, via their mycelia. And mycelium is actually the interconnect, like the network part that is underground, and actually what we call the mushroom is just the fruiting body of the mycelium. So what is also super interesting that I wanted to point, that is also interesting for partnership, is that the fungal networks boost their host plant's immune system, in the sense that when a fungus colonizes the roots of a plant, at the beginning the plant doesn't like it. It triggers the production of defense-related chemicals. And this makes later the plant immune system to other threats responding much quicker and more efficiently. Is a priming, is almost really like a vaccination against other threats. And at that point, I decided to ask, once I found this fascinating organism, I decided to ask to the mycorrhizal network my social challenge questions. And we can go to the next slide. How do fungi and trees acknowledge diversity, build trust, uncover interest, and facilitate communication? These are the first themes. And when you ask me about the development of mycelium, there are many more challenges that can be asked to this system. But I started from this basic one. So inspired by this symbiotic relationship, I focused on the idea of the gamification of stakeholder meetings, and I developed a card deck that, thanks to the metaphor that is connected to the mycorrhizal network, creates this symbolic language so that players can really metaphorically express their interests, resources, and define their roles and interactions by playing the game. So basically, they can start and map their partnership system. Once I got this idea, and I went into the step on how to develop this game, I also started a crowdfunding campaign to really make this idea in the prototype something tangible. So if you go to the next slides, and if you have 3 minutes of your time, you see what was the prompt for this crowdfunding campaign. I think that, I don't know, but I cannot hear the sound. Can you hear it?
Partnership is the new normal. Today, individuals and organizations long for finding their personal and collective purpose to benefit their communities and environment. But they struggle in isolation and lack safe space for connection. Collaboration is key. We wish to transform and liberate them, helping to structure new forms of collaboration. We envision a world where partnership is the new normal to co-create social and environmental benefit. The partnership development pathway usually involves a series of workshops over time. How can we help a facilitator of such workshops to build trust among stakeholders, find a common language based on the recognition of interconnectedness, and to create a safe space for connection? We developed a collaboration tool inspired by nature in the mutualistic association between fungi and plant roots called mycorrhizal network. As such, both species benefit in their interaction and eventually bring their own ecosystems to thrive. What's behind the thriving forest? Mycelium is a tool consisting of 12 cards and a descriptive board, which facilitator can use in partnership inception meetings. The aim of the game is for participants to agree on a set of principles and behaviors to help them move the first steps into the partnership and thrive. Let's look into nature. In mycorrhizal networks, plants provide fungi with energy in the form of sugars photosynthesized. In exchange, fungi help plants suck up water and provide other nutrients via their underground network called mycelium. In their partnership journey, fungi and trees acknowledge their diversity, build trust amongst each other, and enhance communication in the forest, eventually regulating its development. Inspired by the forest ecosystem, mycelium creates a symbolic language for stakeholders. Each card prompts a question, so participants just need to arm themselves with post-it and pens and answer them. They engage in creative conversations, co-generating ideas, following the numbered cards. Participants step into their partnership journey until they reach the final card, the archetype of a functioning partnership. These cards invite stakeholders to reflect on what is the unique identity of their partnership. At the end of the game, the facilitator can play wild cards to challenge the principles and behaviors agreed by the participants. In summary, inspired by nature, the card deck allows co-generation of ideas, creative conversations, and a better understanding of the system and its context. The game can also be used as a diagnostic tool of ongoing partnership.
So that was like a step even before what we are discussing right now. It was the prompt for the crowdfunding campaign that we closed successfully. Initially, we want to post, like the link is just The crowdfunding campaign is closed now, but you can get more information about the game by going there, because the page is still live. You see that the process is really, it was really like into the prototype. If you go to the next slide, you can see the actual card. So behind each card, as I explained in the video, there is a question that can be answered in the shoes of the tree and in the shoe of the fungi. You hide behind the card, but the card also prompts a reflection. So if you go to the next slides, behind the card, there are really like those metaphors. Then to the next slides, yeah. Behind each card, there is the question and the metaphors of that is found in nature. You don't need a previous knowledge about the system. There is, the facilitator reads about the mycorrhizal network in simple terms. The idea is really like also to play the cards. Of course, for each question there is a right answer, but quickly by playing the game, you realize that the right answer could be the right answer also for other questions. So it's really like the objective of the game is to prompt creative conversation and not really seeing who is winning. There is no winners in facilitating partnership and collaboration. If we go to the next slide, like in any situation in life, we also developed wild cards, so cards that are challenges that we couldn't expect in the system. So once the system has been developed and understood, we can launch this wildcard. Here is an example, the wildcard of lack of resources. And the participants are invited to think about, so how might this partnership that we created, the mycorrhizal network, might react to lack of resources. In the specific is like a drought, for example. So lack of water. We can go to the next slides. We're almost at time. It's almost 7. This is the game in real life, and I saw a question in the chat about the possibility of having an online version. Indeed, I think I already got this question several times. I think that for first facilitation meetings, it's very difficult to have them online. But for example, for using the tool as a diagnostic tool of ongoing partnership, definitely an online version and in the Zoom environment is very needed. So we are thinking about having an online version, and we see, because also like the game needs, like it's the beta version, is not the prototype, but it's the beta version of Mycelium. So I was the participant of this art of hosting workshop, where really like the organizers wanted to establish a partnership with the participants, and so we used Mycelium as to diagnose how was this ongoing partnership going, and getting ideas for the days that were following, how to improve. And you can see that the playing with post-its is absolutely crucial for the success of the game, because the cards are just metaphor and prompts. There is nothing more than that. But we saw that it works. I hope that those that received this beta version through the crowdfunding could have fun as well in playing. And I leave you with that, in a sense. So I want to have time for really a little bit of conversation about. I leave you again with our famous quote from Janine that we already discussed. But this quote, it prompts also like something else, is when would you go to nature next? And what would you ask to nature? As I was mentioning, in my opinion, we're all creator, and even just asking a simple question to nature might prompt a better development of processes or relationship that we might have in our day-to-day life. So I think that, as this next slide said, that's a wrap. in terms of me speaking, but I would like really like, I welcome questions, I welcome remarks and comments. I think that again, if you came to this webinar, you answered the call to see how biomimicry can be applied in social context. So we welcome your contribution as well. I don't know how much time do we have left. I think another 15 minutes.
Yes, another 15.
A little over 15, yeah.
So please ask your questions, your comments, whatever you got inspired by. And don't leave before I introduce to you later Edwin. He will talk a little bit about what he's going to do.
Maybe you want to
next
introduce
month.
Edwin already now, like seeing what's
do
coming
Edwin
next?
now? And then the questions, sure.
Yeah.
Edwin, unmute yourself. Tell us what you're going to talk to us about in 1 month. The webinar is set on the April 28th. Same time, same place. So
I believe so.
tell me
Yeah,
everything.
well, basically one word why you need to join this is, or 5 words if you know the acronym, lasers. They're awesome. Yeah, I won't disclose everything because it needs to be a bit of fun and a bit of excitement to be there. We'll walk down the forest as well. I'll show you how to not only to see, but also how to look, or not how to look, but also how to see. And not only to hear, but also how to listen. In basically one word, how to observe. And how you can look with different eyes. And those are the tools you need to find the answers to your own questions, because biomimicry is finding answers by being inspired by nature. And we'll finalize off with, well, how I use those same tools that I just handed over with finding my own answers with lasers, and we'll dive into the rabbit hole and go to a really tiny place where even a single light ray is bigger than we actually need.
Excellent. So let's meet up again in 1 month, April 28th at 6 p.m. CET. We will post it on the usual channels. And yeah, keep your eyes peeled for that. And now back to you, Marina, and questions and impressions.
I want my impression, and then I'm really taken by this, very inspired. There is also a calling on Impact Hub Athens to present a new idea. I think I'm going to be reaching out to all of you and Marina. I thank you very, very much. I don't have a question. The question is, how can we move forward? That's my question. Yes, I am going to have to excuse myself because I do have an 8 o'clock that I need to be in, but me going is thrilled. That's all I wanted to say. See you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Christiana. It's also the objective of this webinar is to create this excitement, I hope.
Yeah, thanks. I actually have to go too, but thank you very much. And I hope to connect with you all very soon. Thank you. Marina, it was great. Thank you.
If no one's asking a question, Marina, maybe I'll go.
Yeah.
Hi.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Hi, this is Hitesh here. Hi, Marina.
Hi, Hitesh.
Hi, it was wonderful presentation. I really liked it. In fact, being a naturalist and working in environment sector for so long, like I could actually relate some of the examples that you cited. And in fact, we always look out for examples wherein we try to implement, like where there's symbiotic relationships between different elements of nature. For example, we are trying to filter a water body which was stagnated and filled with pollutants, and then we try to introduce a few shrubs or plants that could actually filter that water, using that symbiotic terrestrial properties of those plants, and we could actually filter that water and then use the same water to, use it for irrigation or some other purposes. There are so many examples in nature which you can always implement and reduce cost and actually, implement some nature-based solution by using some symbiotic relationship of different elements that's existing in nature. So yeah, thanks a lot.
That's another way of seeing, thank you, Hitesh, for this. That's another way of seeing the biomimicry process, because it's less than emulating, it's really like thinking about the multi-functionality of nature, that to thrive as an evolving system, but also like to help other systems to remediate or to grow. So it's another way of seeing it, and thank you for that.
Yeah.
Anyone else have a question?
Yes. Hello, Marina, everyone. Thank you very much for the presentation. And I just wanted to say that I had the game, I received the game. I didn't try yet, but I'm really looking forward to. And I really like the idea that, as you mentioned, that there is a possibility to use it, to use these cards like when there is a stress situation. So after you have diagnosed the relationship and understand better how it could be better, your collaboration. So in a stress situation, how can both partners can react, knowing what they have diagnosed. And so I'm really looking forward to try with students. And I'm working with students, for example, just to, I was exchanging with some enterprise that were mentioning that the biggest problem was really collaboration and inducing, they are trying to change things like in environmental issue or in security, or and always to introduce change in teams. It's always a challenge. And so and the students really have to work on this aspect, how to induce change in their teams, in their enterprise. And I really would like to use it for that. And I didn't have the opportunity yet, but I will have for sure. And I think it's really,
there are a number of modifications that need to be implemented, because we realize that, for example, yellow over white is not so readable. So, but these are like the technological challenges. I will ask nature for solving it as well.
No, it's beautiful. All the design are beautiful, and it's really great. So thank you for this game.
Super. It's and the online version, as I don't remember who asked, like it will come. We are thinking about it.
Oh, great.
Questions, anyone?
Marina, this is Fraser. I've
Fraser,
been enjoying your talk.
It's fantastic.
I'm good, thanks. Nice to see you too. I've really enjoyed your talk, and I've been enjoying it out in the nature. I was walking. I walked up to the Château des Ponts. I walked through the forest. So it's a fantastic setting to enjoy your talk. And in fact, I have an interesting.
Seeing your location, you should join Biomimicry Switzerland.
Well, absolutely. I was really excited to see the link and find out about the seminar. And I never heard of Biomimicry Switzerland, and now I know about it. So I will. And today I was so I'm trying to understand a book I read about work. The capital in a lot of these new up-and-coming types of social networks, etc. And he made the realization that the traditional Metcalfe's law, which is the sort of exponential growth of networks, was actually flawed. And he coined Meerkeets' law, which is by looking at the population of Meerkeets and how under a certain level, the Ali level, the community will collapse. There's not enough density in the population to to sustain itself, and then after a certain threshold, it'll grow more in a more healthy way. But it was just interesting how today I've been working on actually trying to systemically diagram that dynamic, and it's modeled on a social system and natural social system.
That's fascinating. That's absolutely, like, it's something that needs more research. And I saw you, Michaela, nodding. I don't know if you know more about it.
Yeah, I have meerkats in my case studies in my book as well, because of their way of making decisions. They have a distributed decision-making system, and leaders will take turns. So all the needs of the community will be met by following different leaders, and there's no clinging to power. Every day they will follow the first meerkat that goes foraged in a certain direction. They will all go that direction that day. And so the decision is never contested. But the next day, if you want to be the one taking the decision, you just have to be the first to go in a certain direction. So they take turns. And as it's different individuals, so you'll have maybe a pregnant female once, and you'll have a young male or whatever, and they'll have different food sources and different types of places they will forage. So taking turns and diversity in leadership is apparently good as well. So just a little meerkat note.
That's fascinating.
In fact, I was quite interested in the comments about decision making. I've also been doing a lot of reading about decision making lately, and one of the biggest challenges in human systems with decision making is outcome bias, where we judge the quality of a decision or the actions based on what happened. And I would imagine in a lot of environmental systems or ecological systems, there isn't that judgment.
Exactly.
So maybe there's a flaw in the way that human beings deal with our social interactions with others.
We're still to evolve. I don't think we are a perfect species yet.
Yeah, let's hope so.
Any other questions or opinions to be shared? If there aren't, maybe I will. Okay, Ines, do you have something? No? Okay, Marina, quick question. Did you have to look into maybe elements of game theory, for example, like regarding competition of resources and how that works to develop your game? Sorry.
Yeah, I thought about it, but then I looked at game theory as well, because the initial idea was gamification. But then the reality is, as I mentioned during the presentation, it's not a game in terms of winning or exactly distribution of resources. There is no winner in the game. And I really wanted it in this way, because in collaboration exercises, there is no winner as such. Yes, there is game theory, win-win, lose-win, but the reality is that I wanted to go as far as possible from a competitive behavior. And if we think also about the relationship between trees and fungi and trees, and with some symbiotic relationship, competition is really not part of the equation, because it's about exchange. So partly yes, but then intentionally we derived into something that was not a competitive game.
Thank you. Any other questions? Officially, we have 4 more minutes, so this is your last chance to pick Marina's brain.
Or pick the mic. Ines, finally.
Hello, Marina. I have a question. Actually, I think that in symbiotic systems, we don't have only collaboration, we have also competition and sometimes opportunism between partners. So if you, in a game, maybe it will be boring if we only think about a part of this partnership. I mean, only collaboration. So no winners, but maybe we need competition a little bit.
Yeah, I totally see your point. Again, like keeping the objective in mind, and the objective was to facilitate partnership and to facilitate collaboration. Deliberately, I went into that road. When we analyze symbiotic relationship, there is the level of opportunism, and I wanted to highlight also in my talk about the initial reaction of two strangers coming together, and the initial reaction is most of the time like a defensive reaction, and it's not about competitiveness in the sense of competitiveness for resources, but it's competitiveness for survival. So definitely that part is explored, and in the game is there is also like one specific wild card on attack hurdles. So like the trees are attacked by an insect, whatever insect, and basically they react better because they learn how to defend themselves by this. And again, I wouldn't call it maybe competition, but is yeah, coming together of two conflicting resources, conflicting interests. That is survival. I want to survive, you want to survive. That's the conflicting interest.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, thank you for the remark, because it is important to acknowledge also this part of the game.
Excellent. Since we're only 2 minutes out, let me wrap up with everybody. I just wanted to thank everyone for your questions, all the organizers that have helped me, of course, Marina, your interest, and spread the word, bring a friend for next time. Hey, lasers, you know, and that's important. And I'm really looking forward to welcoming Edwin next time. Keep in touch with us, go on our page, follow us on LinkedIn and Facebook, and we will be here on the 28th with Edwin, and I hope a lot of you. So great. Thanks, Vinisha, for monitoring and